It is 24 degrees centigrade here in Abuja. It's a lovely Friday morning, and you should make it such as well. So that's why it's important for you to go ahead and take it all in, all easy. I know that lots of expectations on the part of the federal government and labor, the courts, the economy, so many issues making the rounds, but it is a lovely weather here, 24 degrees centigrade, and humidity is just about 82%. So much later, you might need to ensure you do some of the other things. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to the program. I'm Chamberlain Osal.
Good morning to you as well. I'm Kayla Megwa.
Well, that's Jabi Lake, by the way. So,
yeah.
If you want to take at least one of the places you can just go in and just catch your breath, that is a suggestion.
There's so many activities to do at Jabi Lake. There's this balloon that you can. You're not going to do that, are you?
Well, I'm not sure. Still thinking about it.
That would be something to watch, though. You can go into that balloon and then they throw you into the water. And then you're rolling on the water while you're in that balloon. It's actually really nice.
I see a movie, too.
Oh, dear God. No. But it makes...
Once I was blind.
Now you see, walking on water. We'll call it walking on water. But it's a really nice experience. You should try it out. Go to Jabi if you've got pets, like I do. Take your dog or your cats. Take them to the lake, and then, you know, have a walk, have a picnic with your friends. Ayo, this is one of the places I'm taking you to when you come to Abuja.
Already you make it sound scary. I mean, just even talking about it, you make it sound scary already. But believe me, it's the kind of thing that you'll find on postcards. If you remember postcards, just one picture of that, and then it's right there in your face. Well, good morning and welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde. Well, let me be the first to tell you what's happening today. One of those things happening today is just 1 hour away, and that is Business Morning on Sunrise Daily, and the focus will be Fintech's coping strategy amidst the headwinds. It's one of the major things we'll be talking about this morning on Sunrise Daily. Right in the middle of the program, in another 1 hour, this conversation is going to happen. Chamberlain?
Okay, I'm just, the noise took over my ears. Okay, so, well, also, much later today, we know lots of people expected some feedback from that Tripartite committee yesterday. So today they will convene by 11, and we're hoping that at least they'll be able to put some figures. So they've had several figures. Even the 105,000 naira, they say, no, that's not right. But today, we'll see what they say.
Has it been 5 days? Because the shelving of that strike is just for 5 days. And everyone's been hoping that in 5 days, some sort of resolution will be reached, so we don't have to go back to another industrial action and see the shutdown of all economic activities in the country. So very important that we follow up on these negotiations and see if they can come up with a figure real soon.
Yeah, so all eyes will be on that one. All right, so let's go ahead and take you through some of the dailies here this morning. Here are some of the dailies we've got for you here this morning. We'll start with Nigerian Tribune. Alleged 5.4 trillion naira fuel subsidy allocation. Atiku, PDP tackle Tinubu. It's a big story, and the rider here, there is no 5.4 trillion naira provision for subsidy in 2024, presidency clarifies. Disowns leaked documents on fiscal policy proposal. Well, that's been making the rounds for a while now, so they're following up on that one on the front page here this morning. Well, that's not all there is to that story. The Daily Times also follows up on that. Come clean of shady 5.4 trillion naira fuel subsidy deal. Atiku, PDP tell Tinubu, say APC government is cesspit of corruption, deceit. Asks president to be accountable to Nigerians, the Daily Times reports this morning. The national minimum wage, FG fails to present new offer, raises committee to fine-tune negotiation, says report linking it with proposing 105,000 naira false. Well, that appears to be point blank that. And then beneath that lead story, Akume asks Nigerians to remain calm, says Tinubu is working. So that you also see beneath that lead story on the front page. CNG buses ready. Rice, other essentials arriving soon. Labour committed treason by shutting down national grid. So all of that story associated with the story you see ascribed to the SGF right there on the front page of Daily Independent. Have a look at New Telegraph next. Energy. FG's planned intervention to gulp 1.916 trillion naira, $245.6 million, 4.5 million euros, ascribed to a report. Yes, that's how the New Telegraph reports today. And it goes on to say with the writer, to pay 1.7 trillion naira electricity debt through bonds, promissory notes. And then Tinubu to global financiers, consider more investments in agriculture, others in Africa. Okay. We'll talk about some of those things in the program here today about security. And then you see the Guardian here, poverty amid plenty, growing nation of destitute as homeless kids invade Abuja, southwest. That's what you find there. And then Daily Trust, bandits kill 7 policemen, 35 others in Zamfara. Review security strategy, Senate tells Tinubu. Tambuwal calls for state of emergency. Yeah, so you see that one. And then Business Day, rising youth heart attack spurs cardiac care revamp. That's what they're reporting here this morning on the front page today.
I find that last one that we just saw on your screen very, very disturbing. On the front page of the Business Day newspaper, rising youth heart attack spurs cardiac care revamp. I remember while Chamberlain was still in Lagos at the time, and we had this conversation with a medical practitioner, a clinical psychologist, and I asked a question that I found, I found the response very intriguing. I asked, when we're talking about, the age at which people began to have anxieties, depression. Yes, that's the question, depression. And I was told by that clinical psychologist in the studio at the time that they had, as at maybe about 4 years ago now, been reporting children with heart attack, with depression, children with depression from age 10. Age 10. And in my head, the first question I asked was, what are they thinking about? And this story on the front page of the Business Day newspaper is cause for concern. We also remember not too long ago that some organizations in Nigeria, I think the Hypertension Society or something like that, came up with the idea that with the research study, which said that about 70% of Nigerians are hypertensive. Now, add that, all of these troubling indices to the one on the front page of Business Day newspaper this morning. It's a very troubling increase in heart attacks among young people, which has been said to prompt initiatives to enhance cardiac care capacities and capabilities in Nigerian hospitals. This is a cause for concern. Let's ask ourselves why this is happening. This is not just medical. What exactly is happening? There are many, many reasons that could be adduced to this. You call it peer pressure, you call it economic meltdown, you call it cyberbullying, whatever it is that you call it. This is a clear and present danger. We know that Nigeria is a young population. Nigeria has the youngest of its population within a very, very young age, people of much younger age. So this should give us cause for concern. If this is happening now, what will tomorrow bring? What are the opportunities right ahead for us? This is a clarion call, not just to young people, but for all of us to do something to take these figures down so that we have a future for the country we call Nigeria as of today. That's my take, Kayla.
Yes, indeed. That call to revamp cardiac care in Nigeria is a very important one. And like you said, very troubling. Young people, what's going on? What aren't we addressing? I'm going to look at the Daily Trust newspaper today. And it's packed. It's got quite a number of stories. Some of them we'll be talking about in the course of today's conversations. But of course, from the Defense Headquarters yesterday, they had their briefing, and we're seeing the details of that briefing on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. Over 9,000 terrorists killed, 9,562 fighters surrendered in 1 year, according to the military. Very interesting. They're more on page 38 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And then, of course, this subsidy back and forth. Has it been removed? Is it still there? What, back, forth? No, it's not. Yes, it is. It's a lot. And we're seeing the federal government insisting that subsidy is gone. Article alleges lack of transparency. More on that also on page 38 of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Chamberlain, this back and forth about whether subsidy has been removed. Yesterday we had Laulu on the program. Laulu was straightforward. He said anyone who's trying to say that they have totally removed subsidy would be telling a lie. It would be a blatant lie at this point. But we're seeing the presidential spokesperson, Mr. Onanuga, saying basically, no, you guys don't understand. It's not true. This is false. What do you make of this back and forth?
Well, they said that it's not whatever source, wherever you're getting any narrative about, 5.4 billion or trillion. Sure. There's no provision in the budget. It didn't come from official quarters, so you can't quote them. So you can only speculate until you maybe media houses dig a little deeper and try and see if they can connect any dots if there are. But he says, yes, documents are out there. Until they give you a final position, I guess we'll just have to see how all of that goes with the 5.4 trillion fuel subsidy provision. So, of course, you had the former vice president and PDP's presidential candidate Atiku say, look, government, you need to be a lot more forthright with the people, given all his reasons why they think that is. So we'll see what and how FG responds to all of that moving forward. But security is top on the burner here today. The Senate did look into it. And so let's let you listen to this report. They started talking about mining, the unfortunate incident that happened where some miners at the moment are trapped. And then the Senate took it a step further, asking, in fact, some of them did call for state of emergency to be declared, and then different approaches. So we'll dig a little deeper and see what the Senate was thinking. But we'd like you to listen to this report, and we will be back to talk about it much later.
Lawmakers converge on the upper legislative chamber for the last plenary session of the week, and the challenge of illegal mining and insecurity dominated conversations.
The Senate knows that.
Following a motion moved by Senator Sani Musa, the need to investigate the incident of a rock slide that buried alive 30 informal miners in Niger State is whipped up.
The appropriate authorities should, as a matter of urgency and necessity, initiate thorough investigation into the circumstances surrounding the incident so as to identify any existing lapses as they relate to safety regulations and enforcement in the sector.
The National Assembly should invoke the powers that is conferred on it by Section 4 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, make the necessary legislation to guide the sector rather than allowing it to the whims and caprices of various government officials, as the case may be.
The government is being shortchanged. It's being shortchanged. The government is not having what is due to it. Or the federal government to come out with strict safety measures and deploy adequate security apparatus to the mining communities in order to maintain vigilance around mining areas to prevent further incursions. Silence in honor of the deceased.
A minute's silence is also observed in honor of the victims of the tragic incident. In a separate motion, the protracted challenge of insecurity becomes the nodal point as some lawmakers canvass for a state of emergency in regions that have become terror hotspots.
I think there is a need for all critical stakeholders, including the President himself, who will now call a meeting of all relevant persons, lock themselves in until they find solution to the insecurity problem in this country. They should not come out of the room.
The security agencies probably are not competent, or they're afraid, or there is complicity. And therefore, all we need to do is to match this with timelines. Give them what they want, but give them timelines to achieve it. Once people know that they're going to lose their positions, they will act.
Mr. President, we have to seek the support of the Parliament to declare emergency, state of emergency in those areas. Once that is done, that will give the military and the security personnel the comfort and confidence to go all out to engage.
The Senate had in January this year summoned the service chiefs over the alarming spate of insecurity across the country as it announced a meeting with President Bola Tinubu to canvass implementable solutions.
The Senate has now passed the National Anti-Doping Bill seeking to domesticate the UNESCO Convention Against Doping to, among other things, establish the National Anti-Doping Center to essentially halt the menace of doping among sportsmen and women. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Okay, so there you go. Quite some interesting perspectives right there. But security is huge. It's part of what... Remember, many farmers, quite a number of them have said, look, they can't get back to the farms owing to that particular challenge. So that we will talk about when we return in a moment. Don't go away. All right, welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Yes, indeed, we're joined this morning by Senator Abdulaziz Musa Yar'Adua, who is the Chairman, Senate Committee on Army. He is also the Chairman, Northern Senators Forum. Good morning, Senator. Good to see you again.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
Well, yesterday, the Senate did have this conversation about security. They raised different concerns, almost tantamount to what quite a number of people have been trying to wrap their heads around in terms of what our approach is as a country. Why is there no solution? Why does it happen again? So if you could start with giving us the mindset of some of the senators, because they did make some recommendations. But what are the key challenges that they identified in the Senate?
Thank you very much. The motion of yesterday basically was to review, the security approaches of to address the banditry attacks, especially in the Northwest, the North Central, and the FCT and other, states that have insecurity. Basically, to my mind, the issue of state police, I think, is what is at stake there. Okay. Because, it is very important to recognize that the governors need to play a more important role now, in the security architecture. And I wouldn't call it that, but I would say reforms are needed now, which I think the federal government has started already in terms of reforming the police. You are aware that over 10,000 had been now recruited. The list is out, and more needs to be done. So I think the issue basically is some of the senators are thinking a state of emergency needs to be in place, which I think it's already in place, because the president, in his wisdom, had declared a state of emergency on food security. And once you declare a state of emergency on food security, by extension, you are declaring state of emergency on security, because you cannot have food security without security. And I think the wisdom of the president is not to put the country on the line, because once you declare state of emergency on security, then by extension you are beginning to scare investors away from this country. So I think in his wisdom he decided to declare state of emergency on food security. And other concerns, is the way the security agencies are collaborating. And I think there is a very serious improvement in that aspect. I was here the last time, and I did tell you that personally I brought a motion on the need for them to improve in their synergy, which we can now see the improvements. If you look at what the security agencies are doing right now, one of their strategy is to take out the leaders of these bandits, and they've been succeeding. Dogo Gede is no more alive. Dangote is no more alive. Somebody, Jambrosielo, so many of them have been taken out. And the essence is, since they are not an organized force, when you take out the leaders, tendency is that, you have the rest, in a state of confusion. And that is what we're having. And what I think I see playing out now in terms of the security is, the operations being conducted by the military and other security agencies. What we are seeing is a reaction by the bandits, going after soft targets, just coming to kill 20, 30 people so that they show that they are still there. But we know from what the operations that are ongoing with the security, a lot has been achieved. And there's a lot of relative security so far.
So, but for the matter to come up again in the Senate, it does suggest that something still needs to be done, that there's a gap somewhere that needs to be plugged, because it's of huge concern to the senators.
Yes, security is a continuous process. It's not something that you can achieve in a day. And Mr. President has done very well when you look at how he started right from the beginning. The first thing he did, was to bring a supplementary budget, which majorly was to ensure that the gap of, equipment, other facilities needed by the security agencies and the armed forces, are given to them so that they can work. And that is why we are seeing the successes we are seeing today. The supplementary budget has done a lot, and he has given more money to the security in the 2024 budget. You are aware of that. So he is doing, and if for anybody who wants to be objective about what Mr. President is doing, if you go back to his Renewed Hope agenda on security, he has talked about, the need to, tinker with the policy and the doctrine of the security agencies. And a lot of work is ongoing along that direction.
So does it mean that those senators who raised those concerns were not being objective?
No, they were objective. I'm not saying they are not objective. What I'm saying is that, everybody talks in respect of what he has seen in his senatorial zone. But Nigeria is a large country. You are talking of 36 states and the FCT. You are talking of over 220 million citizens of this country. And you and I know, of course, we have this security gaps, which this government is battling to, to take care of. So it's not as if nothing is being done. Of course, concerns are there, but the government is doing a lot to help in ensuring that security is...
We've had some of the Chief of Army Staff and some of his team members, they've spoken about what they're doing. Of course, something is being done, but I don't know how the government gets their feedback, because, it was just yesterday, several people were just telling us that behind the scenes, though, some farmers who were attacked by some of these terrorists or insurgents, some of them left the country. So that's where some think that there is a gap somewhere that needs to be plugged, because when the military goes in and does its job and then move on, there has to be that capacity on the part of either the police to step in and fill the gap. But we don't seem to have that yet.
Yes. First of all, you are aware the military is basically doing police job right now. And this government is doing everything possible to reform the Nigerian police force. I've just told you about the 10,000 recruits that are going to be recruited. And I'm aware that one of the things that will be revived, hopefully in the police, is the mobile police, because that is supposed to be the stopgap between the military, and the police. If you look at the state of the mobile police today, they are just not there. So I believe this government is doing everything possible to ensure that the mobile police force is back, and then they do everything possible to ensure even the deployment of those that are going to be trained now is done in such a way that, people are taken back to their constituencies. Because what is important is to try and nip, any, security challenge in the bud.
Are we going to try and change their training manual or curriculum such that counterterrorism is embedded in their functions now, so they do a lot less of civilian functions and make sure they focus on some of these insurgents and dealing with them directly?
No, I think the Inspector General of Police is already handling that. The issue of the counterterrorism cannot be handled by the regular police. It has to be special forces, and he has already established the special forces. But what needs to be done is to have more of the special forces in the states. They are the ones that have the special training, to deal with the terrorism and other banditry issues, especially kidnapping, rescue of those victims that have been kidnapped, and so on. So along that line, I know the Inspector General of Police is doing something to revive, the special forces that will deal with such challenges.
I want you to be able to look at some of the details, especially when it comes to Northern Nigeria. You are chair of the Northern Senators. And listen to Senator Ningi, there's a lot that has happened and are still happening. One of the most troubling of them is this bandit negotiation business that we've heard going on right now. You mentioned a few bandits who have been extinguished. But the truth is, with the extinguishing of someone like Dangote, another person comes up. Many of these bandits see it as an opportunity to rise up the ranks. And the absolute end of this is not yet known. We've heard senators on this program talk about how we're negotiating with some of the people in our neighborhoods so that we can live in peace. Is this something that you would want incorporated into the security architecture that is being examined in ending this problem in the North?
Well, I think the issue of ransom payment has been dealt with by this government, because the government has already banned, giving ransom to bandits. But, citizens sometimes, become apprehensive, especially if your loved one, has been abducted. You try to, find a way. But I think it's important for citizens to know that security is everybody's business. And as such, the government must be given the opportunity to be in the forefront of dealing with it, and not for individuals to take it upon themselves to because the moment you continue to pay ransom, you're just fueling them, you're just making them to continue with what they are doing, because this money they used it to buy weapons, to buy ammunition. These are the things they use it so and to also fuel their criminal activities. So I think it is important for Nigerians to understand the need to stop, paying ransom when their loved ones, are being abducted. And like I mentioned, the role of the governors in this reform is very, very important. And you can see some of them are committed to ending the insecurity by, establishing certain community police, call them vigilante or whatever. But what is important is we all know that, conversations are on in regards to the state police. We believe it is very important to have another layer of security that will help the federal police in ensuring security. And of course, the fears of some people is how these state police are going to be used. I believe if safeguards are put in place to ensure, a sort of distinction between the kind of crimes that the state police can handle and other complex crimes that will be, given to the federal police with synergy among the two forces, I think it will work out.
Another thing that was mentioned at yesterday's conversation in the Senate was timelines to heads of security agencies. Categorically heard the senator say, if you don't do your job in the time that you are allotted, then you would lose your job. If you knew that you were going to lose your job, you would make sure that you meet your target. What do you make of that request?
Well, yes, timeline is good because it helps in ensuring what is supposed to be achieved. But sometimes it does not work. For example, a chief of army staff or air staff or any head of security agency may have, purchased certain, made procurements of certain equipment. Some of this heavy equipment are not sold on the shelf. You have to wait for them to be manufactured, for them to be brought into the country. It takes time. So if sometimes we give timelines when certain requirements of the security agencies are not met, that timeline may not be met. You remember the Tucano helicopters. How many years did it take for them to be in Nigeria here? Assuming you give timeline at that time to the security agencies like the Chief of Army Staff who wanted to use them, how do you want him to achieve and ensure the timeline? Yes, timelines are good to give, but when the armed forces and the security agencies have all that they require to fight the battle. So I think it's important to understand, where we are coming from.
One of the issues this is also raised is the issue of local government autonomy. These banditry and all of these forms of insecurity, they happen at local levels. And many people from local authorities have argued that because the local governments are handicapped, the ability for them to be more proactive when it comes to, handling security situations, identifying security threats at local levels, that handicap has made them in such a way that, they just basically watch it happen, and then things get worse, and then we start to call on the government for help. Is the Senate in any way going to use this as an opportunity to push for better autonomy for local governments, especially financial autonomy?
I think the Senate is already doing that, and I believe the 9th Senate had also done that because a bill was passed. Unfortunately, when it was sent to the various state governments, it did not see the light of the day. And I believe the committee of the 10th Senate on the Constitution, headed by the Deputy President of the Senate, will do the needful in respect of ensuring the autonomy of the local governments. And I tell you that it's very important, like you said, crimes emanate right from at the local level. So the layers of security we have today are just not enough. To me, I believe we should even have a local government police. If you look at the United States, they have almost 5 to 6 layers of security within a local government, which they call a county. You have the sheriff, which is the actual security for the local governments. You have the state police, the presence of the state police. You have the secret police. You have the national police, and you also have the FBI. So you can see the level of security, and that is why if anything happens, within minutes you see the synergy and the reaction. The proactiveness of dealing with that particular, situation. So that is what we need to have. And that is why these bandits, always have their day. They go to a local government where you just have basically not more than 20 policemen. And these 20 policemen are stationed at the local government headquarters. They are not even in the wards,
So that means that, this debate about state police is something you subscribe to, but we need to organize it properly so that it gets to the grassroots and then moving forward.
Exactly.
But what would you say to those narratives, those who always say that, some states cannot fund it, so how do they cope?
Well, I think they can, if they do their best, to generate their internally generated revenue, because some of or most of the states, you see, rely on the allocation by the federal government. And if they take a cue with like Lagos State, I think they will do well, because right now some of the states are funding the community police that they have established. They are funding them. So I believe they can do it.
But do you see that at some point in the history of this country, we might have to come back to that conversation about resources, natural resources in different states? If they keep complaining they don't have resources, they're relying on what comes from the center, they have resources in their states, they can't do anything. At some point, we may have to come back to that conversation and say, okay, you know what, let's see what they can do about that. As it was, we had it before. They just pay royalties to the center. So don't you think that we should be gearing up to perhaps have a conversation on that, in that regard?
Yeah, why not? It's something that can be done, and it has been done before. So I think we can have such a conversation in the future. And, certain modalities could be put in place for those states, that cannot measure up to what they can get. The federal government can assist them, because that was what was happening even during the regions. Those regions that, do not have, the revenue that will, manage the budget they have, some money is taken from another region and given to them at the center. So I think that can be done. And if that is done, it will help in ensuring that, states, become more prudent, in taking care and managing their resources.
Allow me to even bring us to the question of even celebrating whatever wins we have made. It would seem like the only time we talk about insecurity is when we receive the kind of news that we have on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Very, very jarring information of people being killed, particularly security operatives and all of that. But let's begin with whatever wins you think we may have had in recent time. Are there any wins in our security architecture to celebrate? What have we achieved within the past, in recent time? What would you say we can celebrate? Is there anything to celebrate?
I think we have achieved a lot. If you go to the south today and southeast, you can see there's a lot of quiet now as to the activities of IPO. And down in the northwest too, these incidents of killings, I think, have been reduced to the minimum level, or like what happens on daily basis, especially in Zamfara, Kebbi, Katsina State. So a lot has been done. Like I mentioned, most of these leaders of the bandits have been eliminated, and more will be eliminated. And operations, as I'm talking to you, are ongoing by the military to ensure that they are rooted out. So I think there is a lot of improvement in the security. And also, like I mentioned, the governors are doing their best. They are committed to ensuring that, the insecurity is dealt with completely. And I know the effort that the National Security Advisor is making in respect of, bringing all stakeholders to further discuss on the blueprint, that has been brought before the government, so that completely we deal with this situation of insecurity. So I think very soon we are going to have a national discussion on these security issues, bringing all the stakeholders together, including the governors, so that we have, a roadmap as to how it can be dealt with.
One other thing that comes to mind right now is what one can consider safe margin, Senator. When we receive news that policemen are killed, soldiers are killed, anyone in our security apparatus are killed, it is very, very disturbing. And then we also hear from time to time that these bandits or criminals, whatever name we want to call them, they attack soft targets. But anytime there is a death of any Nigerian, it is so disturbing, it is natural for Nigerians to call out the government, be it federal or state. But then what would you consider a safe margin in terms of our security or insecurity? We know, I mean, it's said all over the world that we can't completely wipe out insecurity. We can't put a complete stop to it. What would you consider a safe margin? And we can say, okay, within this particular margin, it is still something that we can call a safe margin of error.
Well, I think that is very difficult for one to determine because security situation is fluid and dynamic. You never can know when and where it can take place. So it is difficult to say. But however, what I will call on Nigerians to do, is to support our armed forces and the security agencies for what they are doing. How do they support them? Is by ensuring that they pass information to them that could help them in, dealing with certain security situations. And this support should be, all-encompassing because this security is the business of everybody. So I think it's very difficult for one to say this is a safe margin because as I'm talking to you now, anything can happen anywhere. But what is important, I think, is the reforms that the federal government is engaging in now. The government should be given all the support required in order to ensure, especially, our police force is being reformed properly. They are being, kitted and given the right equipment to work, as well as, recruit more, police to ensure that our states, our local governments, and the wards are safe.
Well, Senator, two things come to mind right now. Number one is the issue of intelligence gathering. Number two is that of protection. When people, we have heard in this country, I'm sure you're aware, that people give information to security agencies and there is a reprisal from the criminals. So how do people ensure, especially where they have been vulnerable before, that we give this kind of support you're asking for in a way that there will be no reprisal on them? How do we ensure their protection? And then secondly, even before these things happen, we understand that there is supposed to be some intelligence gathering. We understand that DSS operatives are in every local government in this country. If these things suddenly happen on us, what would you say is the reason that that would happen when we're supposed to be ahead of it via intelligence gathering?
Well, like I did say, you see, one of the challenges the security agencies are having is that of informers who have decided to be on the part, of the bandits. And this is the very serious, challenge that the security agencies are having. There was a time in my state when certain informers were kept around the airport. Anytime the Air Force takes off to go to the bandits' den, these informers immediately call them to alert them, and they take positions. So I think the major challenge lies in those that give information, to the bandits. And like I said, most of these local villages are not properly protected. So of course, some of them, will have that fear of, reprisal by the bandits, especially, when the security agencies leave the place. But I think by and large, we should try as Nigerians to take that fear out of us because this is something that concerns all of us. And we have to do everything possible, to ensure that we take these bandits out. And I believe by God's grace, this will be done with the effort that the federal government is making.
It would seem like there is some kind of, I don't know how to put it, well, some understanding from your side, from your end, about how the governors are performing. But then these insecurity issues happen in their states, and people call on the federal government. Even the Senate is calling on the federal government. Is that to say that the states are helpless? You've also talked about the issue of state police that, it's a conversation that needs to be had now. I mean, that conversation has been going on forever. But then we also know that there are states, I'm sure you're aware, who come up with their own security councils, and they bring in everyone that has anything to do in terms of that, and ensure that no such insecurity happen in their states. So is it right now, are you saying that there is very little or nothing the governors, particularly in the states that seem to have these recurrent issues of insecurity, do to forestall the occurrences? After all, they receive security reports.
Well, like I said, the governors are doing their best. You should know that the armed forces and the police belong to the federal government. In that regard, the governors can do but very little. And they, of course, do get very fantastic cooperation from the security agencies anytime they call upon them. So that is why I said it is important to understand the reform that needs to be, widened to ensure that the governors play, a more important role in the security of their states. And by extension, having their own police force, that can, augment what the federal police is doing, so that the more, because we need more security, both at the state level, at the local government levels. And with the number of police, federal police that we have today, we all agree, and we know that there's no way they can police this nation. And that is why, like I mentioned, the recruitment that has just been done of 10,000 policemen, more needs to be done, especially if we have mobile police in every state, maybe 3,000 per state, so that each senatorial zone gets at least 1,000 mobile policemen, to ensure that, more policing is done. And this will relieve the armed forces so that they go back to their, primary role of defending this nation. As I'm talking to you today, the army is operating in the whole 36 states of the Federation, plus the FCT. So they are overstretched. If, God forbid, we have any situation, international, crisis, I don't know how we are going to handle that. So it's very important. The reform of the police needs to be done as quickly as possible so that they can take over from the military, for the military to go back, and continue with their duties.
Have you been thinking about the laws and procedures to ensure that, because eventually when this happens, some say it will eventually happen, it's a question of time, abuse on the part, because you have said time and again, the government needs to do a little bit more, but that concern is also out there. What measures are we putting in place to ensure that we don't have it out of control, such that citizens will begin to protest in one form or one way or the other?
Yeah, that's why I say safeguards need to be put in place. One is, the type of crimes that the state police can handle. They should be given, that policy rule within the community, so that if anything happens immediately, crime is detected, it is treated immediately before it becomes something big. So certain simple crimes could be given as the role of the state police, while complex crimes, are handled by the federal police.
I mean, we keep talking about the army, the police, but there's the non-kinetic issue, poverty, the endemic poverty in many of these parts of the country. That's something that the senators can actually be a part of the solution to, in collaboration with state governors, of course. But how are you going to, because you are chair of these senators from the north, what measures do you think can be put in place by your group to alleviate the poverty levels there? Because the root cause of all of this, as many people have noted, is endemic poverty in the north. How do you handle this?
I think the federal government is doing a lot in that regard. There is this social intervention that has been ongoing, and if you ask, you will hear from people, they've been getting alerts. The government is doing enough in that regard. We as senators, our role is to ensure that, yes, we take the challenges of the people to the Senate and ensure that things are done to alleviate their suffering. And this has been taken, if you remember last year, we passed, we gave the president an approval of 500 billion in order to alleviate the suffering, of especially the issue of the fuel subsidy that has brought about inflation and so many other things that people are, battling with. So I think with what the federal government is doing in terms of social intervention, with time, you see, it's not something you can do, within a day. These are things that have happened over a long period of time. So when governments come with, good intention, most importantly is to look at what the government is doing. And this government of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu is doing enough. Even the students have been, there's student loan that is ongoing. So many things are being done to ensure, that the suffering of people is being alleviated.
But Senator, many people will argue that palliatives do not lift people out of poverty. Palliatives may cushion the effect of a policy that may be harmful to you in the interim. But a long-term solution to a poverty that is endemic and, like you said, has been there for so many years, do you think palliatives are going to be able to handle that?
Well, it's not only the palliatives that the government is, handling. There are other economic policies that are in place now, which basically, will not bear fruit as quickly as we think they should. But we believe, an enabling environment is being provided by the federal government, to ensure that, people get jobs. And then there are other empowerment, initiatives, both from various ministries, to ensure that especially this ministry of, not ministry, but an agency, which deals with empowerment, they are coming up with a lot of strategies, to ensure that especially the youth and women are being empowered. So because not everybody can get a job today. So what this government is doing is to open the space, so that people are empowered, to be able to take care of themselves.
Well, Senator, what do you think about this perspective? Because as the police presently constituted, yes, they've got a lot more capacity and capability, but they are still limited one way or the other. We've had different IGPs have said, look, we need to remove the amount of policemen we have with senators, with politicians is a lot. We see politicians and their convoy, retinue of security attached to them, they harass and manhandle people on the streets, drawing away from policing that should be policing the people. So can we ever get politicians? Because even if we restructure the policing structure, this challenge may still be with us. Can we ever get politicians to do the right things with security?
Why not?
Why are they not doing it till date?
Well, I think it is left for the Inspector General of Police. I remember during Buhari's time, such policemen were withdrawn, and they were asked to withdraw from, those such senators and those that do not deserve to have them. So I don't know if the law has been reversed or not, but I believe it's the Inspector General of Police that needs to do that, because if he feels he has inadequate personnel, then he should know that he has other personnel out there that are not supposed to be where they are. So I think it's him that needs to, do the needful and withdraw them from whoever does not deserve to have a policeman to secure him.
Another critical aspect is information. We know that no matter the boots on the ground, if they don't have information, they'll just be as good as nothing. We've seen former, even current army hierarchy always telling the populace, you need to volunteer information to us. But if they don't see you as one of them or that close to volunteer information to you, it will be a problem. This brings us to the conduct of these security agencies. How close are they to the people? We've seen several scenarios today where people just don't volunteer information. Insurgency, for instance, they thrive on information from citizens. What do you think about how do we improve that?
I think the that has to do with the security agencies and the federal government itself. There is need for an advocacy, on the citizens to ensure that they understand the role they have to play, in security. That is the most important thing, for the citizens to know they have a role to play, and they must be patriotic to this nation.
But isn't it a two-way thing? Because if security agencies don't conduct themselves and endear themselves to the people, if you keep brutalizing the people, how would they volunteer information to you?
I think the security agencies are doing their best. You may have one or two people that, their conduct may not be necessary.
Quite a number.
Yeah, well, some of them, not all of them, because the training we receive, I was a former military officer. I know the training I received, to be humble and to talk to citizens, especially when in an operational area, to win their hearts. We call it, winning the hearts and minds. That is very, very important for the security agencies to do. And I believe they are doing this. They are doing that.
All right. So we'll have to thank you for coming on this morning, and hope that we'll keep looking to see the kinds of improvements that are expected to be done and that will be done as things progress. Senator Abdulaziz Musa Yar'Adua, Chairman, Senate Committee on the Army, and also Chairman, Northern Senators Forum. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, Business Morning on Sunrise Daily will be up next.
Thank you so much, guys. Good morning and welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. It's time to do about 30 minutes of business on this side of the show before we head back. We start from the global space as usual. Oil prices rose on Friday, continuing to climb after OPEC Plus members Saudi Arabia and Russia indicated readiness to pause or reverse output agreement as an interest rate cut seems to be the reigning thing now. Yesterday it was at Europe, and Brent crude, looking at the numbers now, Brent crude was up 16 cents, and 16 cents is about 0.2% right there. Back, we see Brent back at $80. It's been a while, a couple of days, and a threat to Nigeria's budget funding, because the benchmark for our budget is about $77, almost 78. So when we have less than that, is a threat to our revenue. So it's good to see it back at, that's Brent, back at $80, 3 cents, while WTI from the United States is still around at $75, 71 cents, also up 0.2%. And yes, we did mention the factors driving it now. Saudi Arabia is a major one. OPEC Plus, as they had said, that Saudi Arabia and Russia tried to reassure markets on supply agreements. However, they're heading for a weekly loss after analysts saw Sunday's OPEC Plus meeting as indicating rising supply, which is bearish for markets. Attending an event in Russia on Thursday alongside the Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak, Saudi Energy Minister Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman had said that OPEC Plus can pause or reverse voluntary output increase. And you know that this market, they feed on information and expressions such as this. Now we come to Nigeria to look at the Naira close for yesterday. It was a good one. The Naira gained in both markets, and we do hope it builds on that today. For NAFEM, it was up 0.28%, so opened at 1,488. Numbers obviously slight there. 1,484 Naira 37 kobo is the close for yesterday for NAFEX. 1,481 Naira 49 kobo after it opened at 1,419 Naira 53 kobo. So we've been doing about 1,004 all through this week, hovering around this, and we'll see. And we haven't heard of any CBN intervention, so it seems this is a bit stable, at least for this week. Meanwhile, Nigeria's current account balance has increased to $1.432 billion in 2024, and that's despite economic downturn ravaging the country. And this report is from the International Monetary Fund. It's in its World Economic Outlook for the year. The IMF data indicates a positive outlook for Nigeria's economic growth and stability, showing a growing economy with increasing investment and savings, even in the face of erosion of investors' confidence. Nigeria's trade balance for the period under review shows a significant increase from 1.21 billion surplus seen in 2023. The rise in the country's current trade balance is largely attributed to its growing national savings and investment, even as the economy is starving for a dollar, which is why we see those steep movements in the currency market. Now, one of our banks, Wema Bank, has received an upgraded rating from Augusto & Co., validating the bank's BBB plus rated with an ESG score of 2 and confirming a stable outlook for the bank. Augusto & Co. is a pan-African credit rating agency and leading provider of industry, research and knowledge in the country as well as sub-Saharan Africa. By upgrading Wema Bank's rating from BBB, that's BBB, to BBB plus, Augusto has confirmed that Wema Bank is of stable financial standing and more equipped than ever to keep fulfilling its duties as a commercial bank with national authorization. According to Augusto & Co., the upgrade of Wema Bank's rating is underpinned by improved profitability despite macroeconomic headwinds, lower impaired loan ratio, better deposit mix, strong shareholder support as reflected in the successful rights issue exercise and perpetual issuance. They've also said that ESG score of 2, that is becoming important these days, reflecting a view on environmental, social, and governance issues, and that they have minimal impact on the rating. Talking about ESG now, the independent project monitoring company, IPMC, has launched its first ESG ratings for banking and insurance companies. The essence is to encourage more positive actions towards the environment, social, and governance, especially in the banking and insurance sectors. According to the chairman of IPMC, Mr. Robert Adeodiachi, the evolution of ESG is to reflect a broader transformation in the country's financial industry. Working with regulators and stakeholders in the financial sector, IPMC has called this meeting to emphasize the need to adopt more ESG practices into daily operations. Their focus for this initial rating meeting are the banks and insurance companies, and it's a consensus that this move would bring benefit to the sector and beyond.
Research has increasingly shown that integrating ESG factors into investment and business decision leads to value. Sustainable finance is not about sacrificing returns. It's about recognizing long-term profitability and also recognizing that this is intricately linked to sustainability of their businesses. Investors are increasingly demanding that companies demonstrate their commitment to ESG principles, and those that do so are rapidly reaping the rewards.
Clergyman and former managing partner at SIO, Mr. Ito Igodalo, believes that more value would be added if intentional guidelines and regulation is enforced.
Along the line, there might be some legislation that will be put in place through the National Assembly or whatever it is that makes it compulsory for people to have a minimum level of ESG engagement or sustainability, ESG reporting and things like that. You know, a lot of the things that insurance companies do right now is because NICOM forces them to do it. So the regulator too has a lot to play in upping up its game very quickly and ensuring that everybody knows where they're going.
In rating top performance in the adoption of ESG by banks, IPMC recognizes Zenith, Access, Stanbic IBTC, Fidelity and UBA, while insurance had AXA Mansard, Custodian and Allied Alliance Nigeria, and Custodian Life Assurance.
We want to make sure that there is adequate governance. With adequate governance, we are able to ensure that there is sustained processes in our production and in our business, such that we produce responsibly, we use, we use the resources responsibly, we deal with our staff responsibly, then we deal with ourselves responsibly.
IPMC believes that workshops like this would encourage sustainability in doing businesses as well as harnessing human capital. Well, that was looking at the banking and insurance sectors for ESG. But let's look at the fintechs now and see how they're doing, both for ESG and other current economic issues in Nigeria. We have the Group Managing Director of Chance Holding Company PLC, Mrs. Mayo Alanio. She joins us in the studio. Mr. Alanio, good morning, and thank you so much for your time.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we're just talking about ESG there, although that report was focusing on, banking and insurance. But are you guys in the fintechs, are you conscious of ESG, sustainable operations, checking the environment, governance, and socials?
Yes, of course, because we actually need this for sustainability. Everyone in the fintech industry are working on it. Currently, we are doing a lot in the area of ESG.
So like what are you changing your source of power, or, just to see if it's a practical thing in the fintech space?
Yes, it's also but going by what currently happening in the economy. Changing the source of power is not something that one actually needs to contemplate, but it's something you need to go for right now. We're changing the source of power to make sure that we're complying with the ESG, and other governance aspects of it are actually being looked into as well.
Okay, so you did allude to the state of the economy at this time. But I mean, this is the day of AI and technology taking over the world. So you guys should be flourishing at this time.
Of course, we are. Fintech are indeed flourishing because of the resilience despite the economic challenges. But at the same time, every sector has its own challenges.
What are some of your challenges at Fintech?
Okay. In Fintechs, you look at the economic challenges. We are currently what we are going through, the cyber issue that is going a lot of billions of naira that the companies has been losing to the cyber security. Yeah, it's quite all right. Government is doing something a lot in that area. We give it to them, but it would be preferred if you can see more proactive approach to prevent it rather than to combat it. That is one of the things that is affecting the fintech. When we look at the policy as well, fintech is even having a lot of issues that government needs to improve on the policy by carrying the fintech company along for proper implementation of this policy in such a way that it will be a cushion to the company rather than impacting the operation. So, and a lot of more in terms of infrastructure as well. We have some little glitch in that area as well. Payment infrastructure needs to be further advanced.
Payment infrastructure these days. Perhaps you can give us a background of what's going on. It's been really, difficult using a lot of the banking apps these days. What's going on? I know it's not the rain.
Yes, the fact of the matter is that it's one of the challenges that the fintech is meant to provide solution to. But, there's supposed to be a platform and support from government to see it. I admit to the fact that the payment infrastructure is still being developed. We have some in the place, but currently the infrastructure, the network, the internet, the cyber security, all these put together form the infrastructure facility that's required for seamless payment. And these are the areas that the country itself is having some challenges, and fintech is coming in. They are the platform for the fintech to operate. So we are working on this vis-a-vis with the government to improve the standard for seamless payment.
Please tell us how you're working with the government. Are you in talks? Do we have plans? Because you guys are supposed to prefer solution to this, and the private sector especially, because government will tell you, especially at this time, revenue is squeezed. I mean, we're still discussing minimum wage. We don't know where the number will head to. So the private sector is supposed to come in. So tell us the kind of conversations you're having with the government to deal with this, especially now, the payment system. I mean, people are losing money.
Yeah, there's a lot of ongoing conversation. But the private sector will not work in isolation, and hence there's need for partnership with the government. The largest payment infrastructure today is NIPS. And you see all the private, the fintech, the banking sectors are connected to it. And that is where we uncheck for both private and the government to work together to ensure seamless payment.
So, I mean, you are a name in the fintech industry, especially being a woman, the first group managing director of Charms, and, you know, you're listed. So you do have a lot of edge. Do you have conversations with these people? Do we have hope anytime soon?
Sure, there's hope. Anytime soon. We have hope. We have conversation with them, as I've said earlier. An individual organization, you can imagine the number of switching companies we have as of today. We don't have this 5 years back. If you look back 5 years time, we don't have so. But today we have a lot of private complementing the efforts of government fair NIPS. Government is developing NIPS. The bank Habari are coming on their own. Charm Switch is there coming up, and the Ilogen is there coming up. You know, in order to make sure that there is a robust infrastructure payment platform for the fintech sector.
Well, it sounds like we still have to wait a bit. But I mean, I just hope this, you know, the glitch we're having these days on the payment platform is really very discouraging. You know, people are scared of using their apps and money is being lost and all of that. So I do hope that that's sorted out real soon. Now let's look at, you wanted to say something about that?
Yes, there's a lot of work going on the reconciliation aspect of it, and to be able to smoothen the process in such a way that the private can actually do end-to-end remittance. So very soon that will be over.
Oh, tell me about that, the end-to-end remittance. So we need to go through NIPS, is that what you're saying?
No. They will still have to go through NIPS, but a lot will be done at the back end before you get to the NIPS. So it will be that you have the inward through the NIPS, and the outward will be from the private sector.
Yes. So that's ongoing.
We are trying to uncheck, that is ongoing. So very soon you will have a seamless transaction.
We're looking
we will improve upon what is going on.
We're looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But let's look at the sector, fintech generally.
Okay.
Preferring solution at a time like this, turning lime to lemonade, you know, and all of that. Your contribution to the GDP, what are your prospects this year?
Well, fintech has actually done a lot in that. Compared to other sectors in the economy, you will see that fintech alone has contributed over 40% to the economic GDP, and there's a lot more to be done. As I've said, that we're working on the improving on the platform. Definitely, this is going to create a lot of more jobs for people. You expect more engineers to be developed. You expect more transactions, more inclusion, and going to the more rural area, which is actually one of the major objectives of the fintechs. So there will be more activity, more transaction, more revenue to the government, more new entrepreneurs coming up in the fintech industry for them to improve on the GDP. Yes.
So that sounds good. What about employment? The fintech space, do you have like an intentional plan, you know, to train the young ones, to adopt them into the space, or do people just go and do trial and error?
Yeah, it's good to do trial and error, but fintech is a specialized, and I'm not sure if that will go away. But currently, there are a lot of fintech hubs, a lot of training centers, where capacity has been developed to train people. I think currently, we even say, if I have to refer to one of the marketing reports that says that coming 2025, fintech will have provided about 3 million jobs, new jobs in Africa.
2025 is next year.
It's next year that will have been about 3 million new jobs that will have been created. To achieve this, definitely there are different hubs where capacity are being developed, people are being trained, a lot of activities are coming in that will employ this. And currently, you can see that Nigeria is actually a talent pool already, where we have a lot of capacity people moving to the current. It's because they are trained, because they are developed. If they are not developed, the other country, the developed country, won't come to take our own talents that are developed, our youth to that place. So a lot of institutions are actually dwelling on that, training the graduates, enable that they acquire the required capacity to become a competent engineer that are good for fit in fintech industry. And I'm sure that will continue to progress as we can.
All right, just before I let you, I just wanted to get your, I hope this is not like taking us back, the cybersecurity levy, because you did say that cybersecurity is a huge threat to the fintech sector in the country. Are we doing well? A lot of Nigerians are happy that, of course, that cybersecurity levy has been paused, even though it's gone through, you know, being a law. What are your thoughts on that? Is that a need? So, since you said that cybersecurity is a threat.
Yes. Well, maybe I'll have to thank Mr. President for pausing the cybersecurity. It is a threat. As I've said, government is doing a lot on that. We appreciate the collaboration between the government and the fintech sector in order to combat this. But the preferred approach will have been to prevent it. And this has to do with the infrastructure. If ab initio there is a developed and a standard infrastructure coupled with the security, definitely that can go in a long way to reduce it. Rather than levy, there's so many ways that government is earning from fintech infrastructure. So coming up with that will definitely affect people, and that is why you saw a lot of reactions. And again, thanks to Mr. President for pausing it. If we continue, there is opportunity for the fintech to continue expanding. I'm confident that the government will earn a lot. Fair transfer fee, fair taxes, and other fee that will enable them to be able to fight cybercrime instead of coming up with additional fee, which will be additional burden on customer, of course, you and I.
Of course, and then we will run away from the cyberspace. Thank you so much, Group Managing Director of Chams Holding Company PLC, Mr. Mayowa Olaniyan.
Thank you so much.
Olaniyan.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. All right.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll do a bit of markets before we head back to Sunrise Daily. That's right, the threat of food insecurity in Nigeria is real. What is the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development doing about it? We'd like to have him on the program one of these days. We're sending word to Mr. Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development. We'd like to have a word with you on Business Morning or even Business Incorporated, depending on your schedule. But we'd like to know what you're doing to avert the threat that's coming really close to Nigeria when it comes to food security. Now let's head to the market, the financial market, and see how that closed yesterday, beginning, of course, with our most beloved NGX, the stock market in Nigeria. That was back in the red at a close of trade yesterday, 0.15%, even though we still have the 99,000 level right there. 56 trillion naira is still the major one for the market cap, even though we lost 84 billion naira. And yesterday we did see that the Fugas, they did good. They did well. Not the Fugas, others in the banking sector, I beg your pardon, but we saw that banking dropped as at the close of trade yesterday. There you have it. Banking was down. Consumer goods was down. Industrial goods were unchanged. That's the status we'll normally see for oil and gas. But O&O did a very good move yesterday. That brought the oil and gas sector up 0.28%. And insurance, those penny stocks, sometimes they just creep behind, and we see a lot of bargain hunting on them. Looks like perhaps investors are just looking for somewhere safe, maybe long-term hold, and then we see movement with insurance. So yesterday was one of those days, Thursday straight. It was up. The activity charts we see is mixed, with deals that only red there after going down, reducing more than 12% at the close of trade. Top trades will give you a little bit of idea. Fidelity Bank, you know, 2 days ago they had that signing ceremony, coming to agreements and plans ahead of the recapitalization. But the day afterwards, we saw a lot of profit taking, bringing that stock down. This is the volume of trade, but it went down yesterday about more than 9% at the close of trade. The stock price was down. Well, we'll hope investors will maybe take advantage of that
and perhaps hop on that. We're having a conversation with Fidelity Bank executive later on Business Incorporated. So you might want to join us then, find out what's going on. If it's a good place for you to put your money, especially now that recapitalization is in the clouds. So don't forget, 1 p.m., Business Incorporated, you get more information. Access Co. also did a bit of trading yesterday, 42.38 million in volume. O&O, remember, there was bargain hunting on O&O yesterday, traded 28.62 million. So while this was profit taking, this was bargain hunting, reduction, increase. And so we saw, of course, what happened to their counters. Let's go to the listed market. At the close of trade yesterday, we saw a slight drop in the all-share index of the NESD, 0.01%, 1,488.61. Market cap, just about 2 trillion naira. On the activity, we saw more of greens. Volume was in the green. Value was, however, down, lost 27.60%. Deals gained more deals than the previous day. Stocks traded were 8, and that's about 33.3% higher than the day before. That's the NESD. Well, we'll have more conversations on the market and bigger conversations around the world of business. Remember, we also have that conversation on Fidelity. You want to see if it's a good place for you to put your money. Join us at 1 p.m. Business Incorporated. I'll be back, and I'll be on with Aniti Edet, who will come with the market. And let's do 55 minutes of business at 1 p.m. But now let's head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio.
Well, let's have this conversation this morning. It's all about the preparation for the Edo Governorship election. Of course, that same day is likely to, it's the day when we are likely to have the Ondo election as well. So ahead of the September 21 governorship election in Edo State, we understand that the continuous voter registration exercise has resumed right there in that state, especially for those who have recently attained the age of 18, among several others. Let's have conversation this morning, as you're saying, with Mr. Abraham Emiantor, who is a chartered accountant, and he's also a political analyst. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure inviting me.
Well, we were having that conversation about whether or not you think Edo is ready.
Yeah, they are getting ready. It's in Edo State, the political scenery is heightened, very heightened. Continuous voters registration is ongoing. So, you know, Edo State is one of the most articulated political being that you can think of in the Nigeria setting.
Really?
They are vast, very versatile in political arrangement and scheme. So they are getting ready. Different parties getting ready. Everybody is getting ready. From now till September, I don't think there is anything that is going to really take place in Edo, apart from moving from one local government, from one ward to the other.
Okay. Yeah. A quick diversion or digression. How do you see that affecting governance in the state?
Well, truly, it's going to affect governance. It will affect.
How?
Why do I say so? Because even the governor himself have vested interest. They want to ensure that at least they have 1 or 2 persons they are supporting. So they will be moving around trying to put everything in place to ensure that at the end of the day, they come out victorious. And based on that, meetings are ongoing, and meetings that are political, meetings that the affairs of the state will be somehow hindered from various discussions. Even the State House of Assembly, they are moving. Local government chairmen, they are moving. So everybody is moving right now. I said in Edo State, it's a heightened political discussion. Everywhere you go, whether in the beer parlor, it's all about politics as at now.
So there is a likelihood that governance will be affected negatively.
Ideally, it's not supposed to be that. Okay. Because there are commissioners who will be doing the job because they have their different portfolio. So the portfolio that you are assigned to, if you are able to follow it doggedly, it's not supposed to affect the state affair negatively. No. They will have to be doing that. Nobody is saying everybody is a political animal. Anybody that appoints you, you came in from a political party. Nobody is coming from the blues. So I believe, in all honesty, that the people who have been selected so far to be the various commissioners should be able to do their job, and the state will move without affecting anything.
You said
negative.
Ideally,
yes,
it shouldn't affect.
Yes.
But it could.
It could. Okay. In all sincerity. You know, I said, like those in governance, they also have vested interests, which is the truth. Okay. So they will ensure that the person they are fronting or the person they are campaigning for come out victorious. So to come out victorious is not in sleeping on the bed. So you have to be upwardly mobile, moving from one angle to the other to ensure that things are in order.
Okay, well, I mean, you've raised some pertinent questions, on this issue right now, because on the one hand, you said that, the people of Edo State are very, very agile politically.
Very well.
On the other hand, you're saying now that this whole idea of politicking is likely to affect the process of governance. Mm-hmm. Now, what that means is there's a likelihood that people might even turn a blind eye or blindsided. The people might be blindsided in the area of governance.
I said ideally supposed not to.
I heard, but there is that likelihood, right?
There is likelihood
of people being blindsided in the area of governance.
Because why? People are investing. Let me call it investment. Investment to ensure that the right candidate they want to see emerge in September comes out. So it's not something that anybody, a reasonable person, nobody will see his house being burnt and he will be sleeping. So there will be movement. Movement that sometimes unprepared for, impromptu movement. Things you don't know can come up. It must be resolved. So during that resolution, sometimes you may shift away from governance and do that resolution to see that everything is working according to plans. So that is it. That is what I'm saying.
Okay. Well, in all of this, it also points to one thing. When people are talking about elections, as far as the politician is concerned, is to win elections. Mm-hmm. And you have also said something very, very important mm-hmm. about the people of Edo State. Mm-hmm. They are very much interested in who becomes their governor.
Very well.
Do you think they are looking at issues right now? I know it's a Nigerian thing, but we're speaking to Edo right now. Do you think people look at the governance issues that they need to really deal with, they need to consider when they are talking about employing a governor, so to speak?
Okay. In Edo today, any man, any woman who is not following issue, maybe because you are looking at handout, what you can be given, is not a good or a bona fide Edo EDG to vote in this coming election. I'm not talking of the past election, but this coming election is issue-based. Issue, not somebody who is coming to flatter us, coming to say, I will do this, speak English. No. Edo will look at issues, and they are going to scrutinize those issues. If you say you are going to do ABC, not just doing ABC with verbal, they should see that you have everything, if it's data statistics, that you are going to use to back it up. So this next election is going to be issue-based, strictly issue-based. It's not about money. Money will fail in this election.
How can you be so sure?
Very sure.
How?
September, you will see it. That money has failed. Because in Edo State, even those in diaspora knows what is happening. People that have houses in Edo State, in the local communities, cannot travel. I've not slept in my house since 2014.
Why is that?
Yeah, because of kidnapping, banditry, everywhere. I know it's all over Nigeria, all over the world, but we are looking for someone who can tell us, I can do A, B, C to curb maybe like security issue, banditry issue, courtism issue. Go to Edo State. Court is everywhere. Why? Because most of us are not gainfully employed. You cannot beat a child, you say, don't cry. Somebody that has not eaten, you say, have courage. What kind of courage? You can't have courage in emptiness. So those are the issues. It's got to be issue-based.
Now, it's interesting. Let me quickly take you up on that one. It's interesting that you're talking about insecurity in Edo State because it is not something anyone hears about. Is it that something is being done deliberately to silence the people's voice, or what exactly do you think is happening in that regard? Is it something that the government of Edo State is not aware of?
First and foremost, I don't want to believe you say that in Edo State, people are not hearing about insecurity. Maybe it's only you that is not hearing about insecurity. And I don't think the government have the capacity to silence people not to talk about that there is insecurity in Edo State. Insecurity is in Edo State. Yesterday, someone called me, one in diaspora, that he has a big mansion in his own hometown, that he would have loved to be coming home. But from all indication, from what he's hearing, and whatsoever he's hearing as of today, I don't know what is going to happen tomorrow, is the truth of the matter. Kidnapping. You can't go to farm.
In Edo State?
Yes.
How serious do you think?
Very serious. It's serious. It's serious. If anybody doubt it, let it call. It's serious.
So do you think the state government, I mean, you said this thing dates back 10 years at least.
I said since 2014, I've not slept in my house.
That's 10 years.
Yes, 10 years.
Now, would you say that it is because the government of Edo State over the past 10 years did not have the capacity, or what exactly do you think is happening?
You see, whether anyone wants to believe it or not, when you talk of whether Fulani herdsmen or whatsoever, they cannot come and parade the community without having insider in that community. It's not possible. How will they know my farm route? How will they know my name? The insiders that are doing it, some of them, they didn't go to school. Some of them are hungry. Some of them are, even though they go to school, they are not employed. So there is a lot of issues that are bringing all this kidnapping, banditry everywhere. So, I'm not saying government does not have capacity, but I believe that it doesn't have the, if I say capacity, or the wherewithal to tackle this problem.
Okay. Now, so insecurity is one of those issues that you believe that people should be talking about in
They should talk about insecurity.
What other
talk
issues?
About education. Okay. Because without education, every man is incapacitated. Talk about education. Talk about road infrastructure. Talk about manpower development. Manpower development. If you go to Edo State, there's where they call Ilushi, Ozigono. If Ilushi is developed, it will be better compared to Lagos. Ilushi, River Niger. But nobody is doing anything. But if you go to Ilushina, since it's rainy season, everywhere is flooded. All our roads are flooded. These are issues that should come to the table. When I was growing up at my early stage, there's a place called Uzea, Eweke. They saw oil. And as at that time, they were exploring the oil. But after a while, they said my place and the people, that is the Uzea, they were having conflict. Who owns the land? I don't know what happened overnight. The oil dried up. But me, I'm convinced beyond reasonable doubt that that oil is still there till tomorrow. These are issues that they need to look to.
But there are those who would say that the issue of petroleum or crude oil or whatever is more of a federal government issue. But you know,
agreed.
Speak to this as well. I mean, when you say that the politics, that money is going to fail and that issue is going to be all issue-based and all, there's already a conversation on ground that concerning the political permutation of who becomes next governor. There are some who are saying that, okay, the governor right now is from a particular area and the next governor should come from another area and all of that. What do you make of all of that? Do you think that is going to have any significant impact on the elections?
It will have significant impact because in any state does not believe in zoning to a senatorial district, always bring upheaval. But thank God in Edo State, from what I'm seeing, the major political gladiators are coming from a particular senatorial district. So it's going to play a role because if you are not from that senatorial district, no matter how brilliant you are, no matter how you are able to bring your issue to the table, nobody is going to buy or sell you. I can bet you that.
And why is that?
Why? Because, you see, politics is all about giving and taking. If you are in politics, you are in a particular position. You have able to galvanize for the period of time. I also want to be there. That is the Nigeria we find ourselves. Anything short of that will not work. That is why the major political party tried to succeed the gubernatorial candidate to that particular zone. Because they know that, for example, somebody have done 8 good years. And you are saying another person should come and do another 8 years? No, now. It's not feasible. Can never be feasible. Okay, for fairness and equity.
Okay. Yeah. Now, you've talked about 2 very important things. Number 1 is that of issues determining the elections. Number 2, political permutations determining it. What is the role for the people? I'm asking particularly with respect to political education. How educated, how well informed would you say that the people of Edo State is? Particularly the young population between ages 18 and 35 to 40 in Edo State. How politically aware are they? Or is it easier to just sway them in any particular direction of the person with the loudest voice in the room?
Well, they are aware to a certain extent. How do I mean? In Edo State today, leaders control the affairs. I say leaders. If I'm a leader, I'll go to my community. I'll say, oh, they have already said it in the state capital that this is who we are voting for. I can bet you that my statement, 90% of the community people will follow that statement. Even though they know what is right before them. So though they understand politics, but they don't have, that's why I said, you can't tell someone that is hungry to have courage. Because most of them are hungry.
Well, you know, anytime we talk about preparation for elections, we mouth preparing the people. We talk about INEC preparation of the political parties, voter, education, continuous voter registration and all of that. But very little, if significant enough, is spoken of concerning voter education, not just voter awareness, voter education, educating the people about not just voting, about the political environment, about governance issues, about the issues that you have spoken about here. In terms of preparing the people of Edo State for the next governorship election, how should we be going about that?
Well, you see, before now, I'll use an example with a National Orientation Agency. You know, those have failed us. There should be orientation agency set up for that mandate to do it. Go from ward to ward, local government to local government. But they are nowhere to be found. The thing they are doing, for example, in Edo State, is for this political party have their members say, vote for my party. That is not a political education. Political education is, okay, we have 10 political party. This is how to vote. Don't vote here so that your vote will not be null. So those are the things that a orientation agency is supposed to do. There should be an orientation agency moving from one community to the other. But today, I'm not seeing that.
So in that regard, or with that in mind, what kind of voter population are you expecting to come out to vote during the election of September?
During this election, it's going to be average. Why do I say average? Firstly, I can bet you people abroad, outside the state, it will be difficult for them to come home for the singular reason of insecurity. Singular reason for insecurity. Because nobody wants to go home and be captured. You are not prepared for it. Then you are captured. Then you'll be, your family will be running helter-skelter, looking for money where they did not keep. If anybody comes and say they don't pay ransom, everybody, even everybody in Nigeria, know that is a lie. You need to look for money to pay. So it's going to be average compared to all other elections that have happened in Edo State.
So, some other conversation with my colleagues in Abuja. Chamberlain, Kayla.
Yes, indeed. Actually, we're going to go ahead and look ahead to what is going to happen here today. Actually, that's what we're queuing up for. So we do know that the SGF and his team will be having some conversation, which will continue by 11 a.m. today about the minimum wage. But just in case you're wondering if they're going to give us any sort of figures today, here's part of what the SGF has said. So to give you a sense of where they may probably end up.
Let us work in the interest of this country. $100,000. I can't afford to pay my driver $100,000 because they are four. Then how much do I and these other people dependents? And so we came to speak to you, to explain our position, to let you know precisely. Labour started with 600. That moves the wage bill to, that's the federal loan, to 9.9 trillion. Where will we get that money from? Labour said 400, which moves it to
5.something trillion. We are saying no. Please, this is what we can afford. And there are housing schemes. By the time, in fact, a lot of the Federal Housing Authority are going around the state collecting land. And they have access to facilities that will create housing for a huge number of the Nigerian people. And that is why.
So who knows what the figures will be today when they were convened by 11 a.m. For that Tripartite committee meeting, guys. So I guess we'll just keep tabs on that and see what happens. But we do have some messages coming through. Ayo?
Just one or two, and a number of them are still definitely talk. By the way, we have to thank you very much for being here this morning. Mr. Abraham Emianto, chartered accountant, political analyst. Well, quite a number of reactions, but let's begin with this one by Emonoka Enachena, it's a professor. So the federal government purported revenue from minerals and mining of 4.55 billion naira in 2024 budget is ludicrous, irrational, and shows the federal and subnationals are not ready to diversify and deregulate the economy, irrespective of the plethora of solid minerals that are bound in the nooks in Nigeria. That's from Professor Emonoka Nakana.
Okay, and then we have this one from Anderson Asoluka. This man clearly explains to us that the current government doesn't have any plans or agenda for its citizens. They're not even creating meaningful agencies and environments for the common man to thrive. It will only take time, and Nigeria will be better again.
Well, it looks as if Bolaji thinks differently. He says it's a good thing that federal government is doing what it says it will do. I just hope the state governors will follow through with it and not make excuses. All right, so there you go. That wraps it up today on the program. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you again next time. I'm Train Belinoso. Goodbye.
I'm Kayla Magwa. Have a wonderful weekend ahead.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Do have a very productive day.